company called Zenfilms. So Zenfilm, excuse me, Zenfilm, and that is their Twitter handle as well. Zenfilm, and if you're doing anything on Instagram, it has an underscore between Zen and Film because I didn't catch it in time. I don't know. It's there it is. But Zenfilm. So make sure you tag them in that, and also use the SMBHOU hashtag today. And I do want to see lots of cute little videos because we're here to do video, right? So and of course, this is the boring video. My son over here, who's here today, he does more fun things like Musical.ly. I don't know. Have any of you heard of Musical.ly? Put your hand up if you've heard of it. Okay, so let me just tell you that this is a new sort of video thing sweeping the nation called Musical.ly, and they just added in the last couple of weeks a portion of it called Lively, Lively, and Lively is basically like Facebook Live. You can get on and automatically go live with your video. So I would say that this particular tool is very popular with middle schoolers and so on. So you're talking about kids that are digital natives that are really starting to like pump up this value on video. And because of that, not just the kids, but also what's expected of us as communicators, we are going to have to get better at video, period. So that's why I invited these two here today to talk to you about their experience. And they come from a more traditional background for sure, but I want you to understand that production values are more than just, fancy cameras. They are also a creative process. And what I love about what Zenfilm has done, they've done how many of you have heard of the My Houston campaign and seen any of the videos around that? After the show today, we'll put up a link to one of their videos, but basically we're going to talk a little bit about the My Houston campaign and sort of how they came up with that idea. Also how you can get really great video out of that. So without further ado, I'm going to start up and I'm going to ask my first question. And I'm going to really say, hey, when you're talking about video in the current age, can you give me just an idea overall, like from the high level, what it is that the average person out here needs to know about starting to get great video? So what kinds of things do they need to start thinking about? And maybe we'll start with equipment, or do you want to start with something bigger?
Well, I think it probably starts. Hey, everybody! Thanks for coming out today.
This is Russ. Hi, Russ.
Hi. Well, I think it really starts with how you think about how you put together your creative process, how you approach the content that you want to create, and we've talked about this quite a bit. But some of the old adages that have been around since the beginning of mass media go back to the first day radio went on the air. Go back to the first newspaper. Still kind of apply to what we're doing right now. And in that sense, one of the first things that I ever learned when I got into radio as a teenager, working as a DJ in this little small town in Texas. My program director came in and said, there's just 3 rules for being on the air. It's like, be funny, be informative, or be quiet. And he goes, if you stick to that, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about anything else. And it's funny, that stuck with me for years and years and years. It's like, if I don't have anything to say, I shouldn't say it. And if I don't have a video to make, I'm not going to make a video. But if I see something that I really feel, some gravity about, or I feel that I really need to share, then there's my motivation. It's either that's really funny, that's informative, or it can be just a really beautiful image that I want to share, and I can be quiet, just let people soak it up with their eye. But that's where we start.
And I think that's really great because especially now that we have so many channels where we can put video out there, the 3 B's, if you will, be funny, be informative, or be quiet. Yep. Yeah, that's so tweetable. It's not even funny. So that to me is something that I think all of us can think about, like when we're coming on these channels. Because one of the things that I will say personally, because I'm more of a writer / I love taking pictures, but like sitting in front of a video camera and talking to people, I mean, I do it here, but I don't think about the video part, right? I'm just like, oh yeah, that video is happening, but I'm having a conversation, which is a lot easier. But when I open up my now Facebook Live that everybody has, and I go like this, and I aim that at my face, and I turn it on, and then I'm like, oh, crap, I've got to say something like intelligent, you know, so, but I mean, you know, who wants to watch the paint dry, right, while I'm talking about who knows what, prattling on. So my question is, how do you find those things that are informative, that are funny, that are interesting? How do you get those ideas and kind of use them on a day-to-day basis? Where do you get your inspiration? Why don't you say something? I'm going to make her talk. She's not much of a talker, so, but she's very smart.
I'm very smart, trust me.
And hold it close enough.
Okay, so you asked about finding where you find your
Inspiration.
Inspiration. So I think mostly where you have to find your audience, who's going to care about your video, right? And go, what do they want to see? Because you don't want to show them something they don't care about, something that they won't watch for more than 2 minutes. And from there, I build it on, usually my target demo is me. And so I build it on what I care about, what I want to see. Do I care that, you know, the little, like you were talking about boiling pasta or something?
Yeah, boiling pasta. Yeah, I actually was fondue. So let me kind of explain something. I actually came to know these guys whenever PRSA had a travel and tourism section. How many of you know about that? Are in travel and tourism? Did any of you go to that conference? Okay, no, I did. So I went to that conference, and they were actually doing a whole video section. And one of the things that she taught us was time-lapse video, and we'll talk a little bit about that later as a technique that you can use to like really captivate people. And I was like, oh, how cool. And then right after that, we went out to dinner to the Melting Pot. I don't know how many of you have ever been there. And I thought, ooh, I'm going to set up the camera on the not the crock pot, but the melting pot, and see what happens. And so I just did that, and it just showed us like making the cheese, and all of a sudden it made it really interesting. There was steam, there was like, and it all happened in a very short period, like 30 seconds or less. And so when I brought this back to them, give them a little bit of idea of like what your thoughts were around that. So you can go on my Instagram and see it. It's fun. So. But anyway, she had some thoughts right away. So how do you spice something like that up?
Well, I think to me, what you do with something like that, it's something interesting. Clearly, it was interesting to you, so therefore interesting. And you spice it up, you know, Snapchat's a big one where I think it's kind of misused, where you come up with these different videos or pictures to come up with a story because you have your Snapchat story. But something like that could be easily a little piece of a story. There's all these taste-made videos and yum videos that are really popular as Facebook ads right now. And if you could just piece meal little time-lapse videos or little pictures or slow-mo even, and put it together and build a story that's actually more interesting than just a picture or than just, you know, you telling Facebook like this that you love eating at the melting pot. It's, you know, it's a little more interesting.
Right, and one of the things I think you said to me on the phone, which I thought was really interesting, is you said, hey, you know, you could start, could you kind of do your storyboard for that? You said you could start with this and end like with somebody smiling or something like that. Hold it close.
I was joking.
I know, but it's true. It was good. It was good. Because I think that's what we need to think about here is how to think through these storylines.
Okay, so I was joking at the time, but when we first talked about this, I said, you know, you could easily build a story from the simple idea that you come up with at dinner. You can, you know, show the before process, show the cheese melting and boiling, and then you can show, you know, getting your bread or whatever you're gonna dip in, or meat. I assume cheese.
Yeah.
Okay, so your bread to dip in, and then, you know, you end with happy biting or happy smiling or going to sleep or something. You know, you kind of block out your little storyline.
Right, and I think that what you said about Snapchat was really a good point too, because that really is a storytelling channel. And by the way, if you have Snapchat on your phone, you can open that up right now, and I actually hopefully have filters on there. Did it work? Okay, good. Ooh, last month I put one on, and I actually started it at 7 and ended it at 7:10 by accident. So $5 on the train. Anyway, live and learn. But that's how we're trying to like learn. You know, do these things to learn. And Christy's here in the audience, and there's people here that do great Snapchat stories. And I think that's interesting too. One of the things that I didn't ask you about on the phone that I wanted to make sure we talked about was this idea of vertical video, because now we're doing all this vertical video. And before it was like, oh, horrors of horrors, they did that video in vertical, right? So can you talk a little bit about how filmmakers and other people are kind of harnessing the power of vertical video?
Well, you know, and that's kind of probably a loaded question for me because yeah, we've spent about 100 years going from evolving from essentially a very square film format that was what, you know, the first, you know, the Edison formats and stuff like that, what became what we call Academy. And the science of making film and video more watchable over the years is totally evolved around the fact that we have eyes spaced on a horizontal plane. You know, we don't have one eye on top of the other. We don't look at the world as a vertical construct. And when we are entertained, when we are surrounded by video, we want to look at horizontal video. And that's been borne out by years and years of you know, just audience, you know, research and experience, immersive research. So the only reason that we can really think of to have vertical video is because you just happen to be holding the phone that way. It's a matter of convenience. When you come down to actually presenting something that people really enjoy and sit down and get into, and you make a movie, you make it in widescreen. Many times you make it much wider than the formats we're used to now, because all of your major motion pictures are made in VistaVision or CinemaScope and these 2:3:5:1 aspect ratios. So the vertical video thing is, it works out okay, or the square video thing works out pretty well because in Instagram's current format, because of the way it's presented on mobile, but you know, the vertical format doesn't work out really well in the mobile environment, you know, as a full screen.
And when you say that, I mean, I'm going to say a couple of things technically that you probably don't know, but I do. That is, Facebook now is showing vertical video as it doesn't put the bars on the side. You know what I'm saying? It's showing that kind of stuff. And it also, the same thing with Instagram, obviously, they've kind of worked with the aspect ratios a little bit. People are going to make a lot of vertical video. So the bottom line is, and one that I've kind of come to the conclusion of is, if you're going to make a vertical video, make it for vertical video, but then don't try to shoehorn it into the other video formats. So would you say that's maybe?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty safe bet. It's just you know, it really lends itself to, you know, me talking on camera. Yeah, it really lends itself to that. It doesn't really lend itself to landscape or, you know, showing a scene or anything. It's, you know, you get a you need your left
Put your hand in the left handle.
So
this commercial break brought to you by placement. You guys have to pay me now.
probably the best advice that I could give on that is really use the best format for what you're doing. You know, and if you're going to do a time lapse of sunrise over the Grand Canyon, you're probably better off doing a wide format. And if you're doing a periscope or something like that, you're probably better off doing it.
I think it also depends on what your content is. Because portrait obviously lends itself better to portraits of people. So if you want, so if you're doing a little person talking head-like thing that's going to be 15 seconds long, go ahead and do it vertical format, that's fine. I think it's, if you want to, the more artistic side of it, the more you want to put within your little box of picture to work in, you're going to want to go wide.
Yeah, and it is putting a lot more work on us to like do two different formats, because I guess a lot of people here, and you can raise your hand if you're with me, we're very busy and we're like, how can we do all of this? Who thinks that about this video stuff? I mean, I do. And there's just a lot of tools now that are starting to help us do it a lot quicker. and a little bit more interesting. But how do you decide whether you're going to do it yourself or if you need to hire somebody to do it? That's, I think, a big question. And if you're going to hire somebody to do it, I know there's a range of budgets, and we talked a little bit about editors. So let's talk a little bit about that side of things. Like, do we do it ourselves, or do we hire somebody? And then we'll talk about both of those different constructs.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a very good question. And, you know, the answer here is that, or like the environment that we live in right now, we need to have a combination of a lot of self-generated or, you know, what I call homemade content. There needs to be a lot of stuff that you can create easily and off the cuff and get on the, you know, get out on the internet as quickly as possible, because it's topical. You gotta brand while the iron is hot. And then there's the professional type content that needs to be created. It's just when we get down to branding and imaging, and not every product needs to be branded and imaged at a very high level, but it really depends on, you know, who you're representing, what you're communicating for. And it's like, these are kind of weird examples, but, you know, like if you have something that it's on an institutional level has to be wrapped in an envelope of quality, like if the video that is representing a bank, you know, a jewelry store, you know, maybe not a jewelry store because they can reach, you know, a hospital, you know, something that has to be, you know, the content of the video is going to directly impact the viewer's impression of, hey, they know what they're doing, or hey, they've got a budget, they know how to represent their brand. And, you know, you can still have this, you know, high-end professional content and still have this homemade content that kind of supports the narrative. But the two of them have to kind of exist hand in hand.
And I would say, you know, so you're saying basically that if you are, there's two different types of video. There's the video, and we talked about personal stories and stories,
Yep.
storytelling. And then there's a branded video that's more about your brand and who you are. And I know a lot of people, even like not huge brands, that will do sort of a professional video that's a trailer for their organization. But, you know, they'll do a ton of like just off the cuff regular video. So the question is, where do you see that demarcation?
Well, the way it works for a lot of our clients right now is like we'll come in and we might do a television campaign or TV commercials that can also be used on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, and then maybe an imaging video that's like between 2 and 3 minutes that can, you know, be a sort of an explainer, a landing video for their website. And then what we want to do is encourage them to create a bunch of content, whether it's photography or video content, that can be like kind of regular posts, almost like news stories or updates, or, you know, hey, we went to this conference, or hey, we just had some great new research in this area, so that the content on their site and their social media is fresh, and it's, you know, it's got handles that people can grab onto. But when you first encounter the brand, when you get institutional level messages, those images are a little bit more professionally produced, a little bit more polished, so that, you know, you basically say, we understand media, we know what we're doing, this is our brand, but we also want to communicate with you every day.
So it has that personal feel to it on that other side. So that personality, and I mean, Snapchat,
humanizes it.
Yeah, humanizing, and Snapchat does a really great job of that, although it's not like as broad yet of a platform. You know, not as many people are watching it, but something like Facebook Live, I'm going to call out Sandra here and Juan. Is Juan here? No. Yeah, there's Juan. Anyway, if he's here,
Yeah.
And not, but basically what it is, the Texas network of,
Social media network.
Texas Social Media Network, which you can join. She did a really great thing yesterday, which was saying, hey, we're in this private group. Let's just have a challenge that everybody comes on and does one Facebook Live. And let's just see how we do. And we don't have to be like great at it. We don't have to be amazing. But like trying these things out in small places where you can start to get better at the craft. Would you say that is helpful to like just do a lot of these videos.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that I encourage everybody to do is our company's called Zenfilm, and one of the things that inspired that name is there's a whole school of thinking. There's a whole discipline in filmmaking called Zen filmmaking, which is kind of going in with what you know, with your experience, going into a situation, just making a film, not overthinking it, letting it happen. And that's not exactly what we do. We do a lot of pre-production, but
It makes it feel like it was that way.
Right, exactly. But there are some laws of Zen filmmaking that were written several years ago. And one of my favorite laws of Zen filmmaking is number 3, I believe, which is just go for it. 99% of the time, you're going to pull it off. And you've got to not fear the outcome. You've got to say, I'm going to do this, go make it, and then, share it. I mean, 99% of the time you're going to get there. Now, I'm not saying that 99% of the time you're going to get where you wanted to go. You are going to get to a product that you can release. You say, this is totally different than what I expected I would do. But that's okay. That's the beauty of it, is like, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Step off the plane, go. And make that piece. If you don't like it, you don't have to post it. But I'm willing to bet that you can get it.
Yeah, no, and actually it's funny that you say that, and we're going to talk about editing here in a minute, but I was editing together a video from Social Media Day, and I wanted to send it over to Rebecca, so that was really fun, and the video I sent you, and I got to this section, and I couldn't get it cut right. I just couldn't do it. It was on my phone, right? I was doing it on my phone. I'm like, it's too small, I can't see it, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, this is going to be ruined because this is this funny little split scene that comes in here. And I just finally went, oh, and I just threw a transition on it, and it just like hid the whole little problem. And I was like, ooh, I got a transition. I look really smart. But, it was just me being like hiding my complete mistake. She said that's literally what they do for the internet audience.
That's the secret. Go for it. I'm done. But
fake it until you make it.
But you make a very good point though about tools. I mean, some of it's just common sense, but some of it's just kind of using some basic logic techniques with things. But if you get into a situation like Tammy was in, where she's trying to edit with this really inefficient tool like on a phone, maybe it's time to move that video to a desktop solution that gives you a little bit more control of the product. There's literally dozens of tools. You got to use the right tool for the right job. You're not going to try to drive a nail with a screwdriver. So give yourself, say, this isn't working, let me try something else, because there's a million tools out there.
I even have a desktop tool. I just wanted to do it on the phone because I was on the phone. I'll tell you in a minute. I'll pull it up for you. But I have Camtasia on my computer, and Camtasia works amazingly for things like that.
So find a tool that works for you and use it. But when I found that many times, like even with the very high-end professional editing software and stuff like that, I'll run into situations where I'm just saying, I can't get a hold of this the way I want to do it. It's kind of like, I feel like I'm trying to edit with a stick or something. And so you get the right tool and you say, okay, I've got control over this. This is flowing. I can do what I want to do.
Right, and we talked a lot about what tools, and we're going to get into that here in just a second. But before we kind of transition to tools, which I think is kind of important, what, like budget-wise, like if you're going to have to hire somebody to do like a really like great commercial, I know there's different budget levels, but like what are we talking about there? Like, I mean, if you're just like and what are the different options? I mean, for somebody like you, I think an institution would need to come to you, but it may be more affordable than we think. I mean, is it $5,000? Is it $2,000? Is it $20,000? I guess it depends what you want to do. But we talked a little bit about what you want to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an important consideration, but really, not to sound trite, it's like building a video piece, a TV commercial, a piece of branded content. can literally be, you know, how much does it cost to, you know, how much does it cost to build a house? How much does it cost to, you know, start a business? You know, it can be, you know, you can definitely make a $500 TV commercial. And we have made $500,000 TV commercials. So it really depends on what's happening, who's going to be in it, what is the story that you're going to tell, and then what is your particular narrative approach to it. Because, you know, it's like a guy sitting in a car telling you to be safe when you're driving around the lake is one video. A film that depicts the car flying off the cliff into the lake and the woman trying to escape as the car sinks from inside and all that becomes very, very, very expensive, because, you know, you start talking about stunt people and safety and insurance. That's another thing. It's like everything that we do, we've got to do all of these things, make it look really natural and believable and beautiful, and we can't kill anybody in the process. You know, I mean, it's one thing that we were telling Cammy the other day. It's like, sure, this might be a meaningful message that's very useful to somebody or to our brand, but if we kill somebody in the process, we're total jerks. You know, we're not doing brain surgery. We're not saving lives here, and so we can't kill it. And that's one thing Cecil B. DeMille lost sight of in the 1920s, because he killed more people in the making of his movies. I think the Parting of the Red Sea killed 11 people.
What? Oh, jeez. I didn't know that stat.
Yeah, he
That's morbid.
He dumped several million gallons of water into a soundstage with lights. And, it didn't work that well. So.
Electricity and water.
Hollywood doesn't talk about that. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like safety becomes a concern, but the main thing is the execution and the style and the look of it. And if it has to be cinematic, the crew and the equipment and the gear gets pretty huge pretty fast.
Right. So and that actually brings me to another point that we were going to talk about, which was approaches. Because you were talking about framing and approaches in a very specific way. Like, how do you look at like filming? I mean, do you put a camera down, sit somebody in front, and just start talking to the camera? I know you don't, but
no. I mean, really, a lot. Almost everything that we do, the big part of what we do is pre-production. We spend weeks before a big production planning out every shot, when it's going to happen, what's going to be there, what needs to be available on the set at that moment. We're getting ready to do a web series right now, which is a 12-episode situation comedy about that centers around wealth management and financial planning, and it's kind of like a little Modern Family thing, but we've got these 12 episodes that are going to shoot all on a home location over the course of 5 or 6 days, and we've got to shoot every shot that's going to happen in the living room for all 12 episodes all at once, and then everything that shoots in the kitchen all at once. And we have to get all the props and all the wardrobe changes, and everything all has to be planned and mapped out. So we have a detailed set of reports and schedules and everything that goes into that. So we spend days putting all that together. So when we're actually shooting, all we're doing is shooting and getting the performances. You know, we're getting the look and the performance. And we'll actually go through and walk through it and kind of pre-light and all that stuff. So because we don't have time to make decisions once the camera rolls, because it's too expensive.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing. I mean, obviously this group of people are not going to shoot videos like that. Well, some of you may. How many of you are videographers in the room? I don't know. There's one in the back. Okay, good. So yeah.
I saw a hand.
Yeah, I saw it behind the wall. They're behind. All the videographers are behind the wall.
You're behind the fence there.
But the truth is that we aren't going to be shooting video like that on the fly, but we can learn something from that, which is micro planning. You know, so could you talk a little bit about, like, can you just, even if you, I think, took a piece of paper and wrote down on the piece of paper, like, your Snapchat, and before you start the Snapchat, what is every shot going to be and what is it going to be about?
Exactly, yeah, and I mean, I think that's a really good tool. Yeah, it's a really good tool. It's like pre-visualizing what you want to do. If you sit down and, you know, even treat it as sort of a meditative space before you begin a project, and say, okay, I'm gonna sit in
Zen filmmaking.
There's the Zen of it. But get down, give yourself 5 or 10 minutes that you're going to sit down and whatever your process is. Some people like to work by writing things out or making a list. Some people like to, you might like to go out on the internet and do image searches and drag those images into a little storyboard for yourself. Give yourself some kind of technique. A different pre-visualization method is going to work for each one of you. It's going to be something that's unique and very personal to you, but if you can walk through it. What I do is I sit down and I kind of write a description of what I want to have happen. I actually write a little narrative to myself, saying the camera will float in from the left and reveal Sarah sitting at the table having her breakfast. And I'll kind of write that out for myself. I'll never refer to that again. I won't even take that, I won't print that out or put it on my phone and read it. The process of going through there and writing that helped me visualize it and lock it into my mind. Then I just go on from there. So you don't have to be, walking around with a clipboard and all this stuff and be really cumbersome. It's just, you've got to give yourself the time and the space to imagine what you want to do before you want to do it. And you'll find that your effectiveness of hitting that target of what you hope to do and what you achieved match up really well.
That's a really great tip. Rebecca, you do a lot of the social media stuff, right? So kind of how do you come up with the ideas for what you guys are going to do on social media? Could you talk a little bit about your process?
There's 2 processes. Most of it is I'm on set and I think to myself, like, oh, that's really cool what, we're setting up the camera in this way because it's either a big camera, or there's 4 guys holding something up, or there's a big crane, and I go, that's something cool to me, and I do a little time lapse, take a picture or whatever, and that usually ends up being our social media post. Other processes are, we'll get a lot of requests about information about certain things, and we work on how to answer them in a funny or informative way.
And so give me an example of one of those funny and informative ways you answer. What kinds of questions do you get?
Trying to think of one from the Zenfilm so we can find it. But
It's okay, you can just make up something even. It's all right.
one time.
I know. Put her on the spot.
No, a lot of times it's things like, how does, what's it like working with this specific actor, this specific cinematographer, questions like that. And so we'll come up with silly little posts about, showing a little behind the scenes is usually what I end up doing because we're filmmakers and that's the cool part. If you guys knew what I actually did for my job, you'd feel bad for me. But
do tell. That's interesting. What do you do that we feel bad about?
I am on call 24 hours a day and constantly checking emails and keeping details together. Like we have this show, I have to know exactly what all 24 characters are going to be wearing in every single scene and what episode that is, and what time of day that is for that scene in that episode in that location for 5 or 6 shoot days.
So you're going to be like a home organizer in your next career, right?
Yeah, or I want to sell Mac products in Hawaii. That's my
I love that. There's my son. Love it. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Kimmy, I wanted to say one thing before we run out of time, because I think it's something that's really useful, would be really useful to everybody here.
Yes.
And it kind of comes more back down to basic theory with the videos. And one thing that I tell, we go out and we talk to college students, we go out and talk to groups like you, and thanks again for having us. People that come to work for us for the first time, interns that come in, the first thing that I tell them is I say, we are not in the reality business. Now, that doesn't mean we can't tell real stories, but we're not in the business of helping people perceive the world as it really is. We're in the business of using all of our techniques, all of our wizard's mantle of power to help people learn more about the world by seeing things in very different and unusual ways. And you know, Rebecca was talking about time lapse and stuff, and we've been doing a lot of time lapse in recent years. In fact, I said, you know, 2015 was the International Year of Time Lapse. Maybe we can move on, but the thing is when we take, you know, several days or several hours and condense that into a few seconds, we help people have their own little eureka moment. They say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that light moved in that way, or you know, I didn't realize that that's how that happened. And when we use a different technique to relate a story, we're not showing things as they really are, but we're showing kind of a romanticized or a stylized view of the world. And by using those techniques in a nice way, we can tell some really groovy stories. I'm not saying that they're not real stories, but you need to kind of explore your techniques with your videos. It's like, when you make a video, try different things, try different tools, try time lapse, try slow motion, try showing the world in a different way. And you'll find that that catches the eye of the viewing audience. Like if you're thumbing through and if you're thumbing through like Instagram videos or something like that, you know, what are the things that catch your eye? Maybe go through a process where you stop and you browse social media and you just literally take note of the things that are grabbing you. And, you know, because you can sit there and I can tell you, like I can flip through there and I'll see like somebody's in a nightclub and there's disco lights. Never mind, you know, and I just keep blasting through and I'll see something that's like, whoa, that grabbed me. What was that? Why did it grab me? I don't think, you know, the same things grab me visually as grab me with websites. It's like if a website is kind of minimal and it's nicely designed, it's got big imagery, and it's just like, oh, that'll be kind of an interesting mental snack to dive into. When something's really wordy and congested and busy, you say, I don't want to see that. We're getting very good at filtering content. We're almost evolving to that. We're very good at filtering spam. If somebody feels like they're being sold or advertised to, they're gone.
Swipe.
Swipe. So you know, think about those things. It's like having real empathy for the viewing audience and going through a few exercises with the way you experience social media and reflecting that back on your work can go a very long way.
And I love that you finally got to that, which is that idea of empathy with your audience, which I think is really the thing that we have to do as when we're sitting in, especially those of us who are uncomfortable, sitting in front of the camera, is understanding it's not about us.
Exactly, yeah. And you know, when we watch a documentary film or something like that, and we're getting into the story, and then I notice that the documentary filmmaker is inserting himself into the movie a lot, I'll say, dude, what are you doing in your movie? Get out of the movie. It's not about you. And sometimes I'll just turn it off because it's like, you know, why the hell are you doing that? You know, why are you getting in the way of the camera? And but having that real empathy for the audience is a very important thing, and stepping outside yourself is very hard to do. But that's what we do every day, and that's kind of what we sell and trade on, is the fact that we kind of, you know, I may not like a certain kind of music, I may not like a certain style of filmmaking, but if it's the best way to communicate to the audience I'm trying to reach, I love it today. And I'm into it, and I can get myself into that mode. And I was giving an example to Tammy the other day. I was saying, you know, I don't like Nashville country music. You know, it really grates on my nerves. But if I'm working on an ad campaign that's targeted to an audience that likes that music, I can turn off my
personal taste.
I can turn off my personal taste and kind of get into it. And I've really got to become the audience when I'm making that piece. And somebody will say, how can you sit in here listening to this all day? It's, well, yeah, but I'm saying I'm listening to it for them because they love it. And I gotta forget about me. And I told Cammie I went to a website from the little town that I grew up in, that a town called Brownwood, Texas, about 14,000, and they had opened 3 new parks, and they had made 3 videos for their website to show off the 3 new parks, and they were all GoPro mounted on the front of a skateboard set to heavy metal music. Weird little Baptist town up in the center of the state, and death metal skateboard, and it was just like,
Somebody's gotta like tweet that.
I wonder if the kid that made the video likes heavy metal. I wonder if the kid that made the videos considered his audience. Not at all, and I'm sure, and it's probably an embarrassment, to the whole city council. Well, I just don't know what to do.
They probably had a whole hearing on it, but hey, I don't know.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that, and the GoPros are a really good example of that. I mean, and somebody said this to me, and I think it might have been you. In fact, it probably was you, that said, when you're using a GoPro, also have other shots, have outside shots, so you can see what's going on. So
yeah, build a complete narrative, because the GoPro shots on the skateboard are awesome, and they certainly illustrate a certain aspect of the park. But there's, like you said, there's other members of the audience. There may be just scenic vistas and stuff like that you want to show too. So, what is the story you want to tell, and what is the best tool for it? GoPro is an awesome tool. Drones are an awesome tool.
they're amazing, right?
Yeah, but you can't make a whole video out of drone footage unless it's a very specific,
Drone video.
Yeah. So I want to give the 10,000-foot view. There it is. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, the flyover of the flooding, for example, is a good example of the use of drone, right?
Yeah, and it's also a wonderful tool to get shots that you can't normally get. A brilliant example of it was the Going Clear video on HBO, where the filmmakers didn't have any access to the Scientology campus, but they could sure fly over it. And in a documentary of that nature, when you have to refer to the institution of Scientology several times, it's awesome to have, shots of the campus where, there'll probably be laws that'll be written to make that happen anymore.
Flyover laws.
They're coming.
But you bring up a good point. You bring me right into my next topic, which is tools. And I had my son grab this out for me, and this is a tool that Rebecca told me to buy, so I went out and bought it immediately. It's a Manfrotto tripod, and it is absolutely amazing because it just has just the action of it, the way you work on it. You can use it to take very, very, good video. I need another attachment to be able to turn it that way. So I've ordered that. But the point is that this kind of stuff is, I don't know, if you don't have these in your, especially like your tripod and those kinds of things. So could you talk a little bit about tools? I'll even hand you my tools so you have something to talk about.
How much was this?
Like $30 or something on it. I mean, yeah. Amazon Prime.
I think, so what happens with me a lot, and I'll admit I have a creative outlook on a lot of things, and I tend to think about my, how everything's composed in the pictures I take, but I take pictures on my Instagram are all on my cell phone because I am way too lazy to actually download the picture that I take with the camera and put it on my phone.
DSLR, yeah.
I'll put those on my website, but those are never going to go on my Instagram. But tools like this is just a nice little stabilization tool. You can't see.
You can stand up. You can stand up and go over there and set it on the table.
So
feel free to play with it. Just don't steal my phone.
Yeah, take a little video.
Yeah.
You don't have an iPhone, I don't know.
Oh yeah, she's like iPhones. All right, here's your video. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Go to mode. You want time lapse? Crypto lapse? Yeah. All right, that's a good one. Let's not cut off their heads. There we go.
Okay, so everyone over here, can you guys try to clap at the same time 3 times?
All right, 1, 2, 3. Now, 1, 2, 3. Woo!
It might not work. a process.
It's a process. Yeah, it'll work.
Was it too short?
It might be because it's.
Yeah, it's all right. So,
Yeah, no, I mean
it could be a
it,
little longer because it
Yeah.
obviously shrinks the time.
99% of the time.
we'll just do it for the rest of the time and we'll see what happens. Yeah, so I mean and I'll actually post that video a little bit later. But the idea is really cool. Like one of the things that we did when we had our little thing is our course is that we went outside to the pool at the hotel where we were, and I decided to do clouds. So I just put that thing up at the clouds. I just kind of propped it against a pillow or something, and I just walked away and we had a conversation while it was filming. So that hyperlapse is kind of really fun. And then I started playing around with it, right? So I went like on some trips and I did slow motion outside of my window as I drove through like a landscape. I thought that was kind of fun. So I just started doing some things that I haven't really posted necessarily yet. But that idea of putting those pieces between regular video is another idea that I think is really interesting. And could you talk a little bit about the tools you use to edit and so forth on your phone?
Yeah, so everything, like I said, I don't usually take the nice pictures that post them on my Instagram, but I edit the crap out of every single picture I post. Like they're not real. And you know, I'll make a joke where people say like, "Wow, you didn't use a filter." I'm like, "Yeah, because I have like 4 apps it goes through before it goes to Instagram." And like I said, I'm more familiar with iPhone apps now, but
That's okay, you can share those.
I did used to have Android, and there's a lot of good apps on both.
Yes.
That for both photography and video, it's just like they're free, easy tools that you can use. You don't have to be too complicated. Just kind of glaze them over, give them some love before you post them, and everyone's gonna.
What are your favorite tools? Can you tell us what your favorite apps are? I'm gonna open your phone.
For what?
For iPhone, it's fine.
For photography? Or
Yeah, let's do video since we're talking about video today.
my favorite video app is Video Grade. I use it only for time lapses because it gets a little glitchy when there's actual audio. It's amazing, and it makes it look 10,000 times better.
Yeah, I think everything that we do, you know, even though we're going in like on our higher professional stuff, you know, we're, you know, putting camera dollies and movement in there, or we're doing lighting and makeup and all that stuff. Even though we're doing all that, the tools that we have now in post-production give us a lot more latitude. Like we don't have to light quite as much as we used to. We don't have to do many of the things we had to do with film or early video, because we've got tools in our editorial programs that let us manipulate the look. And Rebecca was talking about Video Grade. When we say grading, you know, whether we're shooting stuff on, you know, Alexa or, you know, Red Weapon, a very large cinematic format, we spend a lot of time grading those images. We color correct them. We fill in shadows. We do all kinds of stuff with it. And Video Grade is like a little little phone-based app that does the basics of what we do when we do color grading for the professional stuff. So it's kind of like you got to get in there and play with it. But if you realize that, you know, the visceral changes you can make in video by, you know, deepening the shadows, or, you know, raising the white level, or, you know, just doing some basic things. And you can also change the mood, go for some really dramatic effects as well once you kind of get used to it.
Right, and the only way you find that out though is to play with these like things. And there's so many filters just on your regular phone. We were talking a little bit about whether you use a professional grade camera versus like a video camera versus a phone versus a whatever. And you had an interesting thing to say about that as far as like, you know, control.
Yeah, well, yeah, the phone video apps don't give you as much control. But when you say, if you want to boil it down to its essence, what's the best camera? It's the one you have. And the one that's with you when you happen to be there and that beautiful moment happens, that's the one you use. And and if you're planning and you've got a little bit more control and you have a little more time, you can go to a DSLR, and then you can get depth of field. You can have sharp focus objects in the foreground and out of focus in the back, and it can get really cinematic looking. If you have a lot of time, you can move into like a red weapon or an Alexa, where it takes us, between an hour to 15 minutes to 2 hours to set up a shot. But gosh, it's great when we get it. So, it's kind of adjusting the technique and the time you have available to the right tool. And the cell phone is just right there. It's just bam, I've got that shot. Somebody's using one right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what's great about it, is because the more you use this, the more that you get better at catching those shots when they happen. Do you know what I'm saying? So doing it often helps you get there faster.
It's muscle memory. It's just like a sport or anything else. If you do it, you get better at it. And if you feel like you have a need to use more video in the content that you're creating, set aside a period of time every day. Like maybe you say, I really want to explore magic hour, and say magic hour is
magic hour is?
Magic hour right now is probably about 7 o'clock in Houston on a pretty evening. And you say, like, maybe I'm going to go outside at 7 o'clock every day this week, and I'm going to make a video. And it can be the way the evening sunlight goes through the dappled leaves. It can be anything, but there's something that becomes more romantic about when the sun gets low in the sky, it comes in a sidey way. Middle of the day, we try not to shoot any exteriors outside. If we do, we shape it a lot with tarps and blankets and things, because it's nuclear, and the light is really ugly when it's flat. It's coming straight from above. There's coves in people's eyes. People's eyes are shadowed. And so when we get that light from the side, the glow happens in the hair. It's all this amazing stuff going on. And so I get really excited about it. Sometimes I'll be driving, and I think I have a nervous condition related to it, because my first professional gig was shooting travel video for the original Travel Channel. And so I would get sent to these destinations, and we'd have to shoot an hour-long program. And I'd be driving around Ireland, looking for shots. Then the sun would come out for 5 minutes, and I'm just piling out of the van trying to get it. Whenever the sun comes out, it looks beautiful. I get freaky, like I'm supposed to be shooting. Where's the camera? And so
don't drive and shoot. Just gonna put that out there. Please do not drive and shoot your videos.
Pull over and do it. But the thing is, set a time aside and say, maybe I'm going to go out magic hour, and I'm going to do a little 5-10 second video every day at magic hour, and I'll tag it magic hour. And you'll find a lot of people out in the community love magic hour, and they want to hang out with you.
There's a community around magic hour. That's so cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
There's some people that don't do anything but videos at magic hour. There's some people that don't do anything but time lapse. There's some people that don't do anything but food video, but tapping into those communities and those hashtags is really something that you can leverage. And you kind of have to tinker around with making your personal talents and preferences merge with those hashtag pools. But you can find some really cool connections there.
Yeah, that's great. And we are running out of time. This is like so fun. I could talk. There's a whole other level of things I want to say, but I do want to add a couple of minutes here for questions. So does anybody have a question about like video and sort of how to use it that you're wondering about that we haven't covered yet?
My question is, I'm Trish, and my question is, in regards to the reality of the videos outside versus inside versus green screen, what are you counseling your clients on in regards to how they actually develop their shots? Internal, external, green screen.
Well,
how to develop your shots. That's just for the audience out there.
What we do there is it's like we want to do the best setting to tell the story. And like I really prefer, and it's also kind of an artistic preference, but I really prefer to have people in natural settings and natural light. If it's like interviews and stuff, I like to create a really organic, welcoming thing. It's like doing stuff like that on green screen always comes off a little bit cheesy, no matter how well you do it. I mean, we've reached a point where we can do green screen compositing virtually, you know, seamlessly, but still there's something.
Is it depth?
It's almost like the soul of the video is shallower, if that makes any sense.
With green screen, like you said, there are a lot of really easy ways to do it now to composite, but if you're not going to pay for like a full composite, if you can't, because there's different budgets, of course. I always shy against it unless they have the budget.
Yeah, I think if you shoot green screen and you don't have a large post-production budget, you're hamstringing yourself. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Exactly what I was thinking. I love it.
It's great. And I'm getting a video. All these videos, it's awesome. It's like, woo, do I have another question? Any other questions? Yes.
What is your favorite editing app, like on your phone, like
Your favorite editing app
for video? It's
for iPhone?
So iPhone.
Give her the mic so that they can hear
So you mentioned one earlier, but that was more like for time lapse.
Well, video grade it's a color correction app.
Okay.
So you play with the saturation and the hue, and you play with your brightness level.
Photoshop.
Yeah, but I prefer it for time lapse because you can't, like with landscape, let's say like of a really pretty landscape, you can't edit it the same way as you would with people. The colors, you need to have difference, and this one doesn't really give you the options to bounce back and forth. It
Yeah,
gives
like
you a
an
full
action
grade.
video, so like you want to transition from one particular scene
Yeah,
to the next.
Yeah, and while she's looking it up, I can tell you for Android, the one I was using that I actually do like, it's called Power Director. It's free, but you can get a paid version, I think, of it too. It was very cheap. And actually, you can string a bunch of videos together and put transitions on them and do stuff like that. So it was, I liked it.
Yeah, and I have to confess that I've been editing so long with professional tools that I get too freaked
You
out
can't do it.
trying to work with the phone.
Avid,
Yeah,
or something
just-
like that.
Yeah, we use Avid Media Composer as our editing standard at Zenfilm. And the one thing that I will say about it is until you realize what you can do, you wind up being boxed by the app that you're in.
Right.
And it's like you can find once you have the right set of tools, you don't even have to use transitions. You can put shots together, and again.
Oh, you can find them. I've used Avid in the old days, but I'm sure it's even better now. It's probably an amazing tool. Did you say, Rebecca, did you find your tool? So we can finish answering that particular question.
It really just depends on what you're doing. And if you want, we can talk after specifically on what you want. Apps I like to use. I like Cut because it lets you have a little timeline, and you can order your shot. I talk with my hands. You can order your shots and then put them as one later. I like vPhoto, and Boomerang itself is actually a really awesome app. I don't know if any of you actually just use the app itself.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and I use Majesto too for some things because Majesto kind of puts it together. So like I often find I'm using for my personal stuff Majesto, and I think Majesto is also on iPhone, right? So Majesto is both platforms, and what it'll do, and you do have to pay for it if you want it to be any good at all. And I think it was like $3, so it was not expensive, but it will give you music and everything. It'll do transitions. It edits it for you, which honestly, I mean, if you are a person that likes control, which I'm kind of a control freak, it was a little weird. I was like, and you can put them in the order, you can put the shots in the order you want, but it puts its own transitions over them. So I kind of use it more for personal videos, like, things that I want to show, like we had VBS, and I just did a bunch of shots of VBS, and I put the natural audio underneath it of them singing a song, and then I let Majesto put it all together for me. Mostly because I just didn't have time to mess with it. I didn't want to do it. But yeah, for something for work, I'd probably, pull out my Power Director and start moving things around.
But again, it gets down to the task. It's like, does it have to be put together real quick and get it out right now? Use Majesto, get it out.
And it also puts in photos, so you can do photos and videos together in Majesto.
And you know, but if you need more control and the story has to be really tightly managed, you're going to have to do it yourself. So. But you know, even at a large scale level, you know, like I may direct something, and I'll have editors working for me, so we'll work. Several different things are going on at once, so I don't always have, you know, I'm not doing everything myself. So using a tool to help you out is not a bad thing if it's going to get you to do
For time, right? It's about time and what kind of time you have to put into it, I would say. And then on the desktop, I use Camtasia, which is not, I mean, Avid is amazing. You know, that'd be awesome. But Camtasia I like because I can do screenshots. I can like, so if I want to show something on my computer screen, I can do that. The other day I used it for an interview with a client. Like I just put it up and I put the screen up and what I was talking to her about on the screen, and now I have a recorded audio of what we were talking about and the notes we were taking, so I can go back and have that transcribed. So I mean, there's a lot of ways you can use video that are very not like amazing, like, you know, that just really can help you to do your job better, you know.
Yeah, and I will say though that a lot of the software, like a lot of the professional stuff that we're using now, those companies have come around with their understanding of people's budgets, and you know, it's just like Adobe got to where you can get the whole suite for $69 a month or whatever it is. You can get Avid Media Composer now, I think for $39 or $49 a month, and have the latest edition. Whereas, you know, I can remember a time when I paid $320,000 to put in an Avid suite. So.
Plus, you had to have special computers to have it on, and it had to have its own. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and so, you know, depending on your computer, you can have it as big or as small as you need it to be. But you know, it's a really viable option to. It's a good skill set to have, is to know how to operate a program like that. It's marketable. You can freelance with that skill, and then you can also turn it on when you need it and turn it off when you don't, and not pay for it. So that's the subscription model is really really powerful.
All right, so I think I'm gonna have to cut it off because we're really out of time, because now I really want to talk about editing, but we'll have to maybe I'll have to do like a video with you afterwards about editing, and then we'll put that up as an extra. Anyway, so that's it. I mean, really guys, I mean, video is really important to what we're gonna be doing as professionals over the next few years. I think that it's key to what we're in. Oh, one thing we didn't talk about is audio. Let's talk about that one thing before.
Okay.
So is it okay for me just to come out and, you know, like film you with the audio from my phone? And what's the step up from that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea about audio and video is like, it's based on the environment, and it's based on what you're trying to do. And it's like, if you're in a crowded room and there's a lot of ambient noise and there's a lot of junk going on, you want to be doing what we call near field miking. You want to have the mic as close to the speaking person's mouth. Yeah, that's why in noisy environments we rely a lot on lavalier microphones, things of that nature. The phone is designed and kind of optimized to use the onboard microphone and camera in a way that's serviceable. And it does turn out pretty well most of the time. If you're in a place that's not too noisy, and you know, you can hear what the person's saying, you know, does it tell the story? Does it get there? Maybe it's fine. If you get beyond that, you know, there's lavalier microphone attachments that you can use for your phone. There's also lens attachments that you can get for your phone. So you can get wide angle lenses or telephoto lenses that you can screw onto your phone. And so you can get a little more control over the image and sound that way. But there's a number of manufacturers that make little boom microphones, which are little handheld microphones that are very directional. We talk about the field of a microphone. Some microphones are omnidirectional, which are designed to capture all the sound in the room. Some are designed to just focus like a laser beam right at a certain sound source. So we use a shotgun mic for that type of thing, or a lavalier mic to get in close to the speaking voice. And there's, you know, go search on the web. There's literally dozens of manufacturers.
I have one here it's not very expensive. I just wanted to have something, and it's an Audio Technica, and it's got a really long cord. You can see that, so I can actually plug it into my earphone headset jack, and then it's a lavalier microphone. So if I was going to do interview of you, I just stick it right there. And I can actually back up as far as I need to back up away from you. So, we can kind of have our space and then I can talk to you. So there's things you can do like that. One of the tricks another photographer told me once is that you could take even your headsets that you use for your phone, plug it in and take the microphone and put it in front of their mouth.
Yeah.
And then that headset will actually, or they can put the earphone in, they can hear themselves. That headset will pick up their audio. So even the cheapy version like that we all have hopefully in our possession is a good way to get better audio, because audio can't be faked like video quality sometimes can.
Well, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like I said, it's just, it's really a matter of the technique and the science of sound, and then finding a tool that can get you there. And a lob or even like the headset is a great way to get there.
All right, great. I'm going to quit there, and I want you guys to give these guys a great big hand for our Emmy Award-winning speakers.
Thank you very much for having us.
And I also wanted to ask if there's anybody in the audience that has a job that they need to talk about before